When you talk about priorities, what would admins want their teachers to know in that category of priorities?
Let me read you one quote from an administrator before we talk priorities, because I thought this was really good. The administrator said this: "We can really love people who aren't a good fit for the organization, excuse me. Sometimes we have to correct and or release people we really care for." So just, underline what you said. But when we talk about priorities, administrators, the difficult thing about leading a school, and I think the smaller your school is, the harder it is to do this in some ways, because you get sucked into the day-to-day operations, of the school. This class needs a sub, and just this parent needs to meet with you, all those things that happen. But as a leader, if we're not spending time looking down the road 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, our organization is going to stagnate if we're not careful, and if we're not careful about that. So teachers sometimes, they have their area of focus that they're working on, and that's what they are hired to do. But sometimes when it comes to decisions that a leader has to make, the priorities are looking down the road and not just what's before us, right? And some other practical areas that this comes into play: how dollars are spent. Right? Maybe we all
very difficult one.
Yeah. We all want things, need things for our classrooms, but sometimes there is a greater need beyond. And sometimes maybe a teacher, they're just not able to see that because, again, they're looking at their one area. Accreditation and all that goes into school accreditation, that becomes a priority for schools. But sometimes teachers look at that and say, well, that's not really my priority.
Right. Yes.
But it's something important that the school has to keep up with and make sure they're checking off all the boxes, if you will. I think the bottom line for teachers that can be difficult is they have very little control sometimes over the priorities, right? The priorities may be given to them, and they may feel like they have not as much input into that. And that sometimes can be maybe a frustrating experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so in a school, there are procedures and many processes for everything, or so it seems. There are many gears that run a school, a lot of people in one space with a huge responsibility to accomplish. Since we're talking decisions, what are some common areas that could be potentially points of frustration? What did you find?
Yeah, I just have a list of questions to think about. What does this look like at your school? And as a teacher, did you get to really speak into this at all? Probably not, right? Maybe you did, but you might not. How things are turned in. How's payroll handled? Are you given a check every couple of weeks or every month, or is it, direct deposit? How does the car line work? How will calendar decisions be made? How are facilities and vehicles reserved? Your school handbook probably has, for faculty, hundreds of different processes and things that make your institution just work. And that's how they have decided it's going to work. But again, sometimes it's maybe not how you would do it. And so again, that can cause, a teacher to feel frustrated because it's not the way that they would do it. And again, there's many more than that. Those are just some simple practical things as a teacher. Processes are things we work with every single day.
Yeah, it is such a difference going from having been a teacher and then becoming an administrator. So as teacher, assistant principal, then principal, and just at each level pulling up to a higher level, and not meaning higher superior, superiority, but like looking bigger picture. And you don't, like in your classroom, your decisions, are over just a few group of a little group of people, and it doesn't matter how you turn things in or how you walk in your classroom. It just matters to you. It does matter, but it's just to your classroom.
Yes.
But you are right. Looking big picture, sometimes we know, looking big picture, if I decide this, it's going to affect this. And not everyone in their classrooms understands that. So
yeah, Jenny, I give kind of it's not a word picture. It's two slides that have a picture on it. But the first slide has just a very small piece of the picture, right? So you can't make out what the picture is at all. But I asked the folks in the room, hey, what is this picture? Right? And so nobody can tell. I mean, it's impossible to tell from the little piece that I pull out. But then when I give the big picture, you can see, here's where that piece fits in. And so as a teacher, again, you're looking at, for most of the time, your kind of one piece of the picture, but that leader has got to look at and see the whole picture.
Yeah, that's a great way to illustrate it. And kind of going with that, if we were, on that session that is your assignment to create, things that teachers wish administrators knew, is probably communicate to us. Because so often we as administrators can see a bigger picture. We make a decision, but then we fail to tell, why this is going to feel weird to you, but this is why. So I like what you said there. If we can fill in that picture for them too, that can help them understand a little better too.
Absolutely our responsibility as leaders to do that as much as we are able to. The difficulty is sometimes we're not able to because there's certain details that can't be shared.
For sure.
So that makes it a challenge. But as much as we can, we have to do that as leaders.